Hi, how's it going everyone? Blazing Yeti here, and today we are taking a look at Sons of the Forest. Sons of the Forest, sequel to The Forest, is a very highly anticipated survival horror game that was just released in early access, and it will leave you both amazed and confused at the world it has to offer. Now I do want to start by saying I've never played The Forest, so this will be from the point of view of seeing this as a standalone game without any of the lore from the previous game. So, you start off in a helicopter with a laptop that tells you there is a family of 3 people that have been missing on the island for 31 weeks, and it's implied that it's your job to find them, or at least what's happened to them. Suddenly, your helicopter is shot down, but somehow you've survived and you're now stranded on an island with nothing but your survival pack. This is the only point in the game where you are given any prompts on what to do. The game will tell you to open your survival pack, then open your map, and you get a prompt to look for Team B, which is the other helicopter that crashed. After that, you are completely left on your own. There are no tutorials, no hints. The only thing that you have is what came in your survival pack. However, if you're playing solo, you will have Calvin, who is another survivor who crashed, but his ears have been blown out, so you can only communicate with him through a notepad. Honestly, Calvin is very helpful and more games need a mechanic like this. He is in no way perfect, but I'll come back to him later on. Before we get into the gameplay and the mechanics, the first thing that you will notice is how amazing this game looks for an indie game in early access. This game is by far one of the best looking games that this genre has to offer. As soon as you start, when you're in your helicopter, you get a look at the size of this island, which is massive. But the best thing is the attention to detail in this game. It's not just a copy and paste type of look that you get with a lot of these games. Everything looks so detailed. You can start in 3 locations. I started in the snowy mountains, and the first thing that I noticed was that you actually leave snow trails, rather than just putting a shadow on top of a white skin floor. And as you venture out from your spawn location into the forest, you really get to see how amazing this game looks. From the way that the trees look to the water, everything in this game just looks so good. As you explore the island, you will come across caves, and the first time you enter one of these caves, you will have no idea what to expect. There are these creepy mutants that hide in them, and they're not as easy to take down as you might think. They will jump at you with a fury of attacks, and if you're not prepared, you will be outnumbered in seconds. However, as fun as some of these caves can be, this is where my first complaint comes in. There's not enough caves in this game. There's only really 2 caves that have a ton of enemies in, and the rest are just empty with a few loot boxes. Also, when you kill all the enemies inside of a cave, they don't respawn, so you don't really have a need to go back in there, which does take a lot of the tension out of the game. For example, if you've missed something and you need to go back in the cave to search again, you have no problem just walking around at your own time, which is a completely different atmosphere from outside. When you're roaming around the forest or trying to set up camp, there is a constant feeling that something will just jump out of the bushes at you and attack. Which brings me on to my next point. The enemies' AIs on this island are some of the most interesting things about this game. This island is filled to the brim with cannibals and camps everywhere, but it's almost like they learn and evolve as you play the game. When you start on the island and you come across one for the first time, it's an experience unlike any game I've played. Unlike most games where they're just programmed to attack you at any given moment, it's almost like they're trying to figure you out and they won't attack you straight off the bat unless you attack them first. And if they take too much damage, they won't just keep fighting you until you kill them. They will try to run away and then they try to approach you from a different angle, or they try and get some backup. You will come across them doing all kinds of things, from just chilling by the lakes, mourning the dead, and the more that you kill these guys, the more they will come back and fight with force. The game does a great job of just slowly building up their threat level until you have huge waves of them coming after you. They also don't like the mutants that are on the island, so from time to time you will see some really interesting fights and interactions between them. Overall though, the AIs are the best thing that this game has to offer, and I wish more games paid more attention to the enemies. The only AI I would say needs a lot of work would be the mutant girl. She seems to pop up a lot when you're first on the island, and then for me, she never appeared again, but I'm sure they'll fix that as the game progresses. Okay, so let's talk about the survival elements of this game. For a survival game, it's not very hard to survive on this island. You have your basic needs like food, water, and sleep. Food is found in so many places in this game that you don't really have to worry about it. You don't really need to set traps or catch fish. Plus, if you have Calvin helping you out, you can ask him to bring you an endless supply of fish. And you only need to eat like once a day, so you're never really worried about food. When it comes to water, you're never more than a short trip away from a lake or a river, so once again you don't have to worry about that either. The only thing that you really need to worry about is sleep. When you're busy in the game, you will need to sleep a lot because it takes a lot of energy to do some of the stuff in the game. Some people do like the fact that this game doesn't force a survival aspect down your throat, but in my opinion I do feel like it needs to be a little bit more deadly for a survival game. You can't get sick or have injuries, so if you only have to focus on food, water and sleep, and these things are so easy to manage, it takes a lot away from the survival aspect of this game. Crafting is something that they are still working on, and the developers have said that they're going to be adding more features in future updates, but at the moment there's really not a lot to craft. With your emergency survival kit and the loot from around the chopper, you're pretty much given everything you need to survive from the get-go, so you don't really even need to build a base. However, if you do decide to set up camp somewhere, you will have a completely different game experience. You are given a survival booklet with some information on how to make things, and you can also place down a few blueprints. Not everything can be built from blueprints, but if you do use these, this is where Calvin comes in big. You can ask him to finish structures while you're working on something else, which overall just speeds up the process. And if you build a storage holder, you can also ask him to fill up those. This is one of the main reasons why I love Calvin and why I think every game needs this type of mechanic. It just takes out so much of that boring legwork you normally need to do. Also, if you don't use the blueprints, you can make some pretty amazing structures. They are still working on ways to improve this, but they are off to a good start with what you can do already. You will need to be careful though. The longer you're on this island and the more structures you start to build, the more often cannibals will come after you and try to destroy your hard work, if you don't do that yourself. So the story. I'll just say this. The game does not spoon feed you anything. It's completely up to you to try and piece together everything using context clues. It's also a very short game with only 2 cutscenes after you've landed on the island. And there's also no final boss, which left me with this bad taste in my mouth. I really wanted more of a challenge and more lore to flesh out the story. But if you separate the game as somebody stranded on the island trying to survive while fending off mutants and cannibals, this game is almost perfect. But when you try to add the story to it, it doesn't make much sense. And even if you've played the first game, it still has a bunch of plot holes. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I haven't played the first game. So I watched a video of somebody explaining the story from the first game and how the story in this game works. And even in that, it's very hard to actually put all the story together to try and make a story. This game doesn't really stand alone as a standalone game if you're looking to play this for the story. But like I said, if you're looking to just play this as a survival game to fend off against mutants and cannibals, you can have a right laugh with this game. It is a fun game and some of the mechanics in it are just amazing. Just to give you an idea though of how confusing the ending is, especially for somebody who didn't play the first game, I'm going to leave you with a few clips of how confused I was when I finished the game. If you don't want to be spoiled, leave the video here. But if you did like this video, subscribe, hit the like button, and let's get right into the clips. What? He died though. He was shot. Who? Like, they haven't explained who any of these people are. Is that the puffin dude? Calvin just came out of nowhere. Where was Virginia? She never came back. He just disappeared as well. They need to add more to the story, I think. Like, that did leave me very like, oh, we found the cube. That's the cube. We just saw another dimension, and that was it. Like, we didn't get to go in the other dimension. We didn't get to, like, there wasn't even a final boss. There was just loads of those, like, scorpion type people. What did the countdown mean? Yeah, like, and who was that guy? Who was that guy that was with us? He appeared like twice in it. And who was the guy in the silver suit that tried to jump into the cube at the end? Like, there was a guy in the suit, in the silver suit, who who knocked us out right at the very beginning of the game. Then he was there during the explosion, like, thing when we went through the yellow door. And now he tried to get into the cube at the end and didn't make it. Was that him that got turned into that weird thing? If so, what the hell was the point of him being there? That was so lackluster. For the amount of time I spent running around this island to find everything, I feel like my brain's just been fried. Yeah, the actual game itself, like the core elements of the game, like, The best thing about this is the AIs of the cannibals and the tribes people. Like, they had the best AIs. Like, they would mourn over the losses of their dead. Like, the big tough guys would come over to one that you'd killed, and he'd pick him up and be like, "You're weak," and like throw him away. Like, and then they would like all come to raid your base and stuff like that. Like, they had good mechanics for the enemies, except for the demons, which was the point of the story. So the actual story thing makes no sense, but the actual game itself was good. Yeah, you're right, Unvaders. They never had no explanation whatsoever. I'm left with more questions now than I got answers throughout the entire thing. I saw the painting of the gold armor and the katana, but that had absolutely no meaning whatsoever, because it was not explained to you why there is a picture of a man with a golden armor and a katana, and then you find them, and then that's the key to opening the door. There was no explanation given for any of it. Those little pieces of paper that you find don't really tell you anything. They tell you absolutely nothing. I don't know. But yeah, hopefully, because they said they're going to be working on some stuff with the game, so hopefully they fix the ending. Yeah, there was no like, how did they get out of that cave? I left loads of those people behind. They just got teleported back to the beach. Apparently they are working on some things, and don't forget it is still in early access, so they might the story might completely change by the time it comes out for full release. Yeah, and where did the helicopter come from? I don't know. That guy was shot like 10 minutes ago, but yeah, that's left me with a bad taste in my mouth. Like, I wanted more of a fulfilling ending. I wanted a big boss to fight at the end. He got shot in the shoulder. Well, at least show him with an armband, like an arm sling on or something. Like, but yeah, I wanted a better an actual boss at the end. There was no boss. Like, make that final. Why the hell? Like, you just going down? For, like, there's that. Like, it didn't feel like a dungeon or anything like that, because there's only one type of enemy that comes at you the entire time while you're down there, and you only go through like 2 or 3 big rooms that have nothing in it. It's completely empty. Like, there needs to be like a dungeon with multiple levels and different people. Like, some of the facilities were really cool, but there was like barely any creepers. Like, the first time you go into them, they seem pretty intense, but then when you realise that most of them have nothing in them, they get a little bit like stale.